Hey, what is up? How's it going? Back again to talk about this episode tomorrow. Ooh, so yeah, really looking forward to it. Uh, so yeah, I guess got everything pulled up right here. Yeah, as I basically said in that community post, the more I think about it, the more I'm really starting to talk myself into the fact. Hey, what is up, Jason? I'm really just starting to talk myself into the fact that Walter White and Jesse Pinkman are going to appear in the next episode. Again, maybe subconsciously want someone to try to talk me out of it, but just the more sort of digging I do and the more sort of thinking I do about it, I for some reason I just think they're going to appear in the next episode. So hey, how's it going? Appreciate it, everyone. Nice to see everyone. I appreciate all the comments so far. But yeah, so I guess I don't know. I don't know really where to start here, but okay, for starters, every week I've definitely pulled up all of the photos that they've released prior to every episode. But I definitely noticed for this episode, Black and Blue, I don't think any photos were released for this episode because I was using this website. I believe it's called like Nerds Beyond or something to that effect. And they released the official photos for every episode. But I kept sort of going back and refreshing and looking as the week progressed, and I haven't seen anything. And so maybe someone can sort of tell me if I'm wrong here, but and I even went to the IMDb. God, I'm dyslexic. Anyway, I went to this IMDb again. Acronyms not so good for me, and I looked at the photos that were posted here, and I definitely noticed that all of these photos here, actually one of them is a direct copy, but all of these appear to be just directly lifted from the trailer for season 6 of Better Call Saul. So these aren't even really official photos. They're just sort of, screenshots of the trailer that was released. Again, this trailer is slightly different from the one that was released on television. I can't find that one. I mean, I do remember what they said. It was a little bit longer, a couple more sequences and scenes here, but no official photos here. So again, my conspiracy theory sort of red flag here is going up. Like, that's odd. Why are there no photos for this episode? You would wonder. All the other ones had photos, but not this one. So again, with the title here, I mean, Black and Blue being a direct reference to the Breaking Bad episode Negro y Azul. And I have heard a lot of people online talk about how they want an episode entitled Breaking and Bad or something to that effect. But I feel like that's a little bit almost too obvious, And I really feel like there's just enough subtlety here in this title for it to almost make sense, where I can really talk myself into the fact that, the random fifth episode is going to be the episode in which they appear. Because also, I was thinking about how a lot of people have mentioned in the sort of comments to the various posts I've made about this sort of, belief I have now, where wouldn't they appear in a more symbolic location, like the final episode of part one, the finale of part one, the finale of part two, or maybe the premiere of part one? But I definitely don't think the very first appearance, for example, would be in the finale of the series, because I feel like that would really just take away from everything that's going on in this show specifically, and would really just take the entire focus on the very last episode to just be about Walt and Jesse appearing. And also, if they don't appear in the first 12 episodes, for example, then everyone knows they're appearing in the last one because we've been told they're appearing. And if they don't appear in the first 12, well then, by process of elimination, they're going to be in 13. So that kind of, takes away the suspense to it. Evan Berg, absolutely. I've talked about this as well. Is this just an absolute red herring here? Like, no photos being released. The title is an exact title to a Breaking Bad episode. Maybe it is about the Hamlin Indigo Blue, and maybe it has something to do with that boxing scene that we've seen teased to us in various forms prior to this episode. So absolutely, it could be a red herring, Evan Berg. I've thought about that as well. But for, like again, I was saying at the beginning of the stream, I almost want someone to talk me out of my belief here. And I've pretty much put myself out there saying that I think they're going to appear in this episode. So I'm either going to be really right or really wrong. I may have to eat some serious crow tomorrow, and people will definitely let me know, and that's all good. I mean, you gotta take risks in this world, man. You can't be afraid of rejection for sure, and you got to put yourself out there. And I mean, I guess I'm sort of doing that with this prediction here. I know a lot of people have talked about it as well, so. I agree, Coconut Head. I wish I could. If I could grow a stash, I absolutely would grow one. Absolutely. And going just before I guess I get into all the other scenes that have been teased, about this episode, still staying with the sort of Walter White and Jesse Pinkman premise, I also was thinking about, well, if they appear, when will they appear, for example? I mean, for all intents and purposes, the only real way I see them appearing is in the very first cold opening scene, because I was thinking back to Breaking Bad, and I was actually pulling up the episode list here, and I was thinking back to every single episode we've seen in Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul as well, for that matter. Oh my goodness, Cinco Bones, thank you so much, man. Wow, wow, I really appreciate it. What is up as well, man? Dude, I absolutely thank you for this super chat and the last one. I'm, 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 I'm at a loss of words here, man. I really appreciate it. Wow, damn. Again, really appreciate it, man. Again, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. But anyway, I guess going back into what I was saying, I mean, just kind of going back to every episode of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul that has been displayed to us so far, I was thinking back to the sort of way they play with time in these various episodes in respect to flash forwards and flashbacks. And again, really appreciate it, Synchro Bones. I mean, my goodness, I appreciate it. What is up as well, like I said, but yeah, like I said, going back to how they play with time here, I was thinking back to all the flash forwards and flashbacks that we've seen over the course of Breaking Bad. And again, there are almost, again, I could maybe do these off the top of my head. I'd have to sort of think about it, but there definitely is a lot of the times we see maybe a flash forward to what happens at the end of the episode. A big one that stands out to me, for example, is the episode entitled Grilled, where we see, unbeknownst to us, Tuco's death at the very beginning of that episode, and then it's revealed to us at the very end. And the point I'm getting at here is we really only see major sort of flash forwards or flashbacks in this series appear at the very beginning of episodes. In the general sense, as far as I'm concerned, the only real exception to this rule that stands out to me, I believe, was the episode entitled Rabid Dog, where they really played with time in a way we really didn't see before over the course of this series, if I'm not mistaken. And if we remember back to when Jesse Pinkman was going to burn down Walter White's house at the end of the episode entitled Confessions, after he put two and two together in respect to the rice and cigarettes and Huel lifting it from his pockets, we saw the episode cut to black with him about to burn down the house. But of course, when Rabid Dog starts out, we see Walter White go into the house and Jesse Pinkman isn't there. But of course, it's revealed to us, I believe, at the beginning of Act 2 or Act 3, maybe. I believe that maybe the start of Act 3. We then see a flashback to Jesse Pinkman about to burn down that house, and he's interrupted by Hank Schrader. And we really never saw, Breaking Bad play with time like that outside of that episode Rabid Dog. That was a real stark contrast to the sort of manipulation of time that I really feel like we haven't seen. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but going back, that's the one that really stood out. And the point I'm getting at here with a Better Call Saul as well is, if we do have that sort of flash forward scene to Walter White and Jesse Pinkman that occurs in the next episode, it really only really makes sense for me for it to appear in the cold opening scene. I mean, a flash forward wouldn't work in the middle of an episode or even the last scene of an episode, seemingly. Now, of course, I have heard the theories about, Jesse dealing at Taco Cabeza or something to that effect, because that was mentioned at the very end of the previous episode. And I do think it's very likely we sort of see the backstory of how Emilio became Saul Goodman's client for the first time, after we saw what happened the second time was when he got arrested during the pilot episode, when Jesse Pinkman was engaged in sexual intercourse with that woman a couple houses down, and he didn't get caught. But yeah, so other than that, I mean, that would maybe be a present day timeline scene. But if we do get a flash forward or flashback scene, with that sort of photo they tweeted being from the episode entitled Negro y Azul, it really just makes sense that it would come at the very beginning of that episode. I mean, I don't know where else it would come, in my opinion. So all right then. All right then. I didn't know that the conspiracy, the Tony Dalton wrapped his shooting when after episode 11. I didn't know that, and that I appreciate that information. That does, I definitely think that makes sense, where the last two episodes could be focused on the Gene timeline. Again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but that definitely makes sense. And again, sort of going back to this sort of conspiracy theory that I'm going to call it until tomorrow night, is if we go back to season 4 of a Better Call Saul, in the episode entitled Quite a Ride, which coincidentally is the 5th episode of that season. What's amazing about this episode is that the cold opening scene of this episode, if I can open it up here without too many problems, the cold opening scene of this episode display. Oh my goodness, Paul Sarah, thank you so much for the super chat. Hey everyone, let's help this channel out by hitting the like button. Anton puts a ton of time and energy into these streams and enjoyment video. Oh, I'm at a loss for words, man. My voice is cracking here. My goodness, man, I really appreciate it. Again, you're too kind, man. I really appreciate the support. I appreciate it, man. And the past super chat as well. I remember. I think from the second stream I ever did. I appreciate that one as well, man. Thank you so much. Again, at a loss of words, man. I really appreciate it. But anyway, going back to my sort of putting my conspiratorial board together, the 5th episode of season 4 entitled Quite a Ride displayed to us the flash forward scene to the Breaking Bad timeline of Saul and Francesca. And I've talked about this one in depth in many of my previous videos. I don't want to get bogged down in too many details here. But the point I'm trying to make here is very coincidentally, this was the 5th episode of the season, and we're heading into the 5th episode of the season. But what I really like about this thing that I saw, I don't even know what you'd call it, but this teaser here that displayed to us this scene displayed to us the very last day of the law office of Saul Goodman and Associates. This is what this flash forward was. It was the very last day this office was in effect, I guess. This was basically the last time Saul was ever in his office, is what I'm trying to get at here. And very coincidentally in this episode, as I talked about in my previous video, we're going to see the very first day ever of Saul Goodman at the law offices of Saul Goodman and Associates here. And again, I know I just sound sort of crazy here. I feel like I'm just sort of connecting the dots, and maybe I'm being totally off base. But again, like, for some reason, I just really think that, the Breaking Bad overlap is going to happen in this episode. And I really remember, too, I think Peter Gould did an interview where he even said that Walter White and Jesse Pinkman's appearance isn't even going to be, like, the biggest surprise of this entire season. And with, Nacho's death happening in the 3rd episode, I mean, that's come true so far, at least on the surface, in my opinion. So I just really think that it just makes a lot of sense where if they just came back in the 5th episode of the season, very sort of seemingly randomly on the surface, where we still have 2 episodes left of part 1, and it's even sort of very unceremonious because there's, of course, no real information leading up to this episode specifically, but for some reason it just makes total sense to me. So I mean, we see the very first ever iteration of Saul Goodman's office, the very first day it opens, when he says open for business in that teaser that was released prior to season 6. And then in the 5th episode of season 4 entitled Quite a Ride, which was the only episode that Francesca actually appeared in that season, in season 4, was the very last day of that office. So, I don't know. I mean, I am going to really eat crow tomorrow if I'm wrong about this. But, like I said, it's all good. I'm putting myself out there, man. I'm going to come what may, as Betsy Kettleman said to Saul Goodman or Jimmy McGill at the time in season 1 of Better Call Saul. That's a really good question, Thomas Hill. Again, I don't know. I was thinking back to that interview that Peter Gould did where he said it's not going to be the biggest surprise. And I don't know how much it could change our perception of those characters per se in respect to them in the plot of Breaking Bad, but I mean, without a doubt, Saul Goodman is not the person we thought he was at all in the plot of Breaking Bad compared to what we've seen in the plot of Better Call Saul so far, so relax and sleep. I'm sorry, I do not understand that reference. I agree, Cinco Bones. I don't think it would just be nostalgia by any stretch. You would imagine that it would somehow have to factor into the Saul Goodman storyline somehow. And like I said, it's very possible that I'm completely wrong and it doesn't happen tomorrow. But it is going to happen at some point in time. And you would imagine it's going to be somewhat significant. I mean, the writing has been absolutely unbelievable, in my opinion, so far through season 6. So it just kind of makes sense to me that it would be quite significant for sure. And I was even thinking about the fact how I definitely saw in like my live stream after the 4th episode, I did see, some people were not the most, I guess, enthusiastic about the fourth episode compared to the third, kind of saying it was a more plot development episode. And maybe not all people will appreciate that for sure, but I definitely feel like I talked about how it's impossible to follow an amazing episode like episode 3. So episode 4 really seems like a transition episode where maybe we'll see this just, I don't know, unbelievable surprise of Walter White and Jesse Pinkman very much out of the blue in the next episode of season 6. But of course, as I forgot, I apologize who I should go back who made that comment about how Black and Blue could get. Evan Berg made a comment about how it could just be a reference to Hamlin to go blue. And we know we have seen that boxing scene as well. In Black and Blue, I think of like bruises that are pretty common in boxing. So again, could be a total red herring, but I don't know. It just seems so coincidental. Like, wow, what a coincidence. Black and Blue is the same title as a Breaking Bad episode. And, you would imagine that it would sort of be very unceremonious and very out of the blue here. And if it happened in maybe a finale of part A or part 1 or part 2 of this series, it would sort of take away from the actual storyline that's going on in that episode to close out each part of the half season. So I don't know. I've really talked myself into it, and really looking forward to seeing if I'm totally wrong or not. So that's a good point too, Charlie. I mean, on the surface, it does seem a little early and unceremonious, but that's kind of why I'm talking myself into it, because it's sort of everything being not what it seems. And I know I made that reference in my previous stream about the Princess Bride, about the poison wine. That you think that I think that that I think. So I really feel like we could go down that rabbit hole, but that's definitely a good point for sure. How it seems too early. I would say initially it'd be like they're not going to appear in episode 5. Are you crazy? But I'm starting to talk myself into it. So that's a great point, man. Wallace Bill, I tend to agree that would be a flash forward, but I kind of, I've heard a lot of people talking about how we seemingly need to see how Emilio first became a client of Saul Goodman, and so maybe Jesse Pinkman could appear in some capacity in respect to that Wallace Bell. But at the same time, that storyline involving Spooge was much more unconsequential than I would thought it would be to that episode. So again, who knows at the same time. Brian Snies. Again, I apologize on that name. I would love to see Price. Again, I don't know if it's possible just on, the fact that he really just seems removed from the story. I mean, other than the sort of Nacho Varga angle. But again, I feel like they have sort of bigger fish to fry. I don't know exactly how they would put him in there. But again, I would absolutely love to see him be the Danny who runs the laser tag for sure. Even if it's just, one scene or just that kind of confirms that. That would be absolutely great. I mean, I love Price for sure, and we haven't seen him since season 3 of Better Call Saul, if I'm not mistaken, when Nacho bought those pills from him. Great episode. I mean, one of my favorites, to tell you the truth. I mean, that scene when when he scared Nacho when he came home after work. I don't remember exactly which one it was. It was definitely off-brand, maybe, or maybe it was off-brand or expenses. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I would absolutely love to see more Price. So, but yeah, so I mean, kind of getting into I guess I would kind of break down the photos for the next episode. But like I talked about, there haven't been any official release, not that I've seen. These all seem to be screenshots of just the various the one trailer that we've seen released. And just to talk about this image first, I guess, the one of Ray Seahorn and Bob Odenkirk. Yeah, this definitely looks like just a screenshot off like a YouTube video or something. But this scene was actually teased in the TV sort of on the next episode of Better Call Saul, where I believe we hear Saul say to Kim, "Thank God he's dead," in respect to Lalo Salamanca. And of course, at the end of the previous episode, we know that Kim is totally aware that Lalo is still alive, and Saul is still blissfully ignorant. And we definitely heard Bob Odenkirk talk about in many sort of interviews about his character, how he's really afraid of Lalo, and he just is absolutely fearful of him. Nick Russ, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, wow, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. At a loss for words, man. But yeah, I mean, anyway, appreciate it, man. Getting it, but yeah, anyway, so I lost my train of thought there again. But yeah, just Saul's like just absolute fear of Lalo that we saw him exhibit in the desert. I mean, I feel like we really need to see that set up. I mean, of course, we're not going to see every little thing, but that absolute that was just unrelenting fear that he exhibited in that desert, where he really thought he was done for. And we know that Saul is just absolutely afraid of Lalo Salamanca. And again, you do wonder how he's going to figure it out. I did surmise that maybe, Mike would be the vessel by which he finds out that Lalo is actually still alive. And I guess that's maybe technically true, how because Mike told Kim. But again, we don't know whether or not Kim is going to, I guess, spill the beans, for lack of a better phrase, to Saul about this information. And, she's definitely still holding it in, and she could have told him at the end of episode 4, but of course Saul was in a very good mood and a real sort of high there with him opening up that new office and everything. So again, you do wonder when and sort of who the vessel is going to be in respect to Saul finding out that Lalo's actually still alive. And that's actually another interesting component I thought about, is when he figures that out. I mean, he's still going about his daily life. I mean, I'm sure the initial fear will be always with him, but he's still going to have to go out there and live his life every day. And when he was with sort of Walter White in the very first scene we ever saw of him in season 2 of Breaking Bad, in the episode entitled Better Call Saul, he was still his very sort of upbeat and, sarcastic self, joking around, saying those things to Francesca when he was leaving his office, and that fear was still with him. So even though you imagine he would just be, again, that's sort of actually quite a nuance there. I don't know how he's going to react to that information when he finds out Lalo is still alive, but there's definitely fear around there. So a lot of nuance there, and I could really sort of speculate how exactly that's going to be displayed to us on screen, but again, I'm not really sure, but it's definitely something I'm really looking forward to seeing. So but yeah, because like I talked about how there are no other sort of official images here that or photos, excuse me, that were released prior to this episode. I guess I'm now just going to go into the official trailer that was released. And again, it's a little bit shorter than the one that was released on the television cut. Like I said, this one scene is not here on the TV cut of it. But of course, we get a shot of the Super Lab here. And again, we get Mike sort of saying, I could put more guys on the place if that's what you're thinking. Again, really sort of, it'd be tough to speculate on what the sort of context of the conversation is here. And actually, I was going back to the teaser for the previous episode, and I was thinking back to how the one line we got from that final scene of Mike and Gus was, I can put more guys, or I need to have guys in close, is what he said. And I could have never imagined that. I believe the line right before he said that was, he's not there just to make French fries. So I could have never predicted that, the sort of context of that conversation back then. So I'm not even going to try here. But again, you would imagine I could put more guys on the place if that's what you're thinking. I mean, I imagine they're meeting in the Super Lab. Again, I don't know if they're talking about the Super Lab. My general consensus of this dialogue is they're probably still talking about the sort of security around Gus Fring in respect to, Lalo Salamanca trying to track him down and sort of go after him after he knows, or Gus knows that Lalo knows that Gus was behind that hit. So again, really tough to say what's going to happen here. Again, the Super Lab is also a really sort of interesting sort of aspect of the storyline, because actually, if we remember back to the timeline of Breaking Bad, if I can find it, in season 4, I believe the earliest iteration we ever saw of it was in the episode entitled Box Cutter. Again, I hope I can click this without any problems. But in the flash forward scene to this episode, we see Gail Bedecker setting up the Super Lab here, and the Super Lab hadn't been set up yet. All of the sort of high level equipment was still in the boxes and things of that nature. And of course, we know that he had tested Walter White's methamphetamine in this scene. So this was some point in the timeline when Walter White was already in the game. But of course, we're still very far down the road here from that happening. We're still 4 years out from when Walter White started cooking methamphetamine in the plot of Breaking Bad. So again, I don't know what the final conclusion of this storyline is going to be. You'd imagine that we're going to see a finished structure before the story is over. But again, I'm not really sure. Maybe it will still be a gutted structure, but again, I don't really know what's going to happen here with the Super Lab, because we know what happens in the finality of, we know it gets built and we know Walter White eventually destroys it. We know what happens there. But the real sort of point of this storyline is more in its sort of relation to Gus Fring's ultimate sort of myopic revenge against the cartel, and it's sort of being in the context of him overall undermining the cartel. So again, I'm not really sure what the final conclusion that will be displayed to us of this storyline will be, but again, really sort of interesting sort of aspect here of this. I would imagine that you'd think a nice little bow would be tied on this storyline when all is said and done. We'd see it at least finished, even though we couldn't see it set up, of course, because that would be seemingly an error in continuity from the timeline of Breaking Bad. But can't wait to see what happens here, and I could just speculate. That's an interesting point. Single Bones. I mean, I definitely think that Mike was the PI who did it, but again, that's a great question, man. And I talked about that in my previous video about Kim not being an official partner, as an associate for the law offices of Saul Goodman and Associates, based on his dialogue in that sneak peek scene where he says to Francesca that she's paving her own way, likely how she's going to set up her own pro bono practice. So again, you do wonder when all is said and done if that's even going to be able to happen, just based on the nature of the storyline. If they are going to be successful, I mean, seemingly no, you wouldn't. Seemingly that would be almost too much of a happy sort of fairy tale ending where they sort of scam Howard and his character is assassinated a little bit, but he's left standing. They get their 1.7 million or whatever, and they can set up this pro bono practice. They get investments from Clifford Maine, and it's one big fairy tale ending. Again, it seemingly could be possible, but again, it almost seems like too much of a happy ending. And what we saw with Nacho Varga, excuse me, it's hard to see. I appreciate that, Mercedes 63. I appreciate that. I've been called worse. Good day to you as well, at Saul Goodman. But yeah, so this scene here, again, it doesn't show the full iteration of this scene, but we can see in the television sort of trailer for this episode, we saw Kim talking to Viola, I believe, at the El Camino restaurant, if I'm not mistaken, and Viola brings up something to the effect of, what she's doing for the little guy is really great, and Kim says she's just getting warmed up. Again, I kind of just talked about Kim a little bit, about how seemingly, she's not going to get to experience everything she wants to, and seemingly something bad is going to happen. Again, it's just so hard to put together this story, and I think the creators basically said something to the effect of, like that trailer said, there's no way to truly know what is going to happen here with these characters, because again, it just seems so futile in speculating. I mean, I kind of just did a little bit, but seemingly you think it wouldn't be a happy ending with the way everything's going, but who knows. So yeah, again, this scene had been teased in a teaser leading up to this season as well, the Open for Business. I believe this is the grand opening of the law offices of Saul Goodman and Associates, the very first, Open for Business that Saul ever does in this series. Again, definitely wasn't expecting that gutted structure that we saw in that sneak peek scene leading up to this episode. Unbelievable just to see that backstory, where Saul was he's never the type of person who can just wait around. It really reminds me back to season 2 of Better Call Saul, with the whole storyline involving the commercial at Davison, Maine, where he wanted to put it out there and Clifford Maine was going away for the weekend. And any normal person who worked in a law office like that would just, understand the fact that they can't put that commercial out there without the consent of the partners, and they're just going to have to wait around for the weekend before any progress is made. But, nope, he was going to blaze the trail, come what may. And same thing here. There's a disgusting toilet in the center of this office, but he doesn't care. He's still going to open it. He's Saul Goodman. We can't wait 2 weeks for this place to look all renovated. We're going to open right now. So again, that was an unbelievable sneak peek scene. I really enjoyed that. Just seeing the look on Francesca's face, where who could have imagined that was her very first day at that office when we first saw her in the plot of Breaking Bad. So I just love the sort of the writing here and just the unexpected twists and turns that have been displayed so far. I've really enjoyed it. Again, I kind of talked about this Super Lab scene already. This one was also a great scene here where we hear Clifford Maine saying, "I just need you to know that I know." Yeah, really, again, with the pace of this show, I'm really looking forward to this confrontation here of Clifford Maine and Howard Hamlin, where I believe Howard Hamlin then says it wasn't me, Cliff. Again, after seeing what Clifford Maine saw outside of that restaurant and just seeing all of the sort of very, unlikely coincidences just pile up for Howard Hamlin and his relationship with the baby powder and with, the Kettleman's accusations, and then with Howard Hamlin's alleged behavior when someone in his car pushed, a prostitute outside of the car at that rapid speed. Again, really looking forward to this sort of confrontation here. I definitely talked about the sort of overall sort of plan in respect to what Jimmy and Kim are doing in respect to Howard's relationship with Clifford Maine. Excuse me. But yeah, just really, really interested to see what happens here with this storyline. And like I said, Howard does not seem like a person who's just going to sort of lay down and die, metaphorically speaking, in this capacity with, these baseless accusations against him with Jimmy and Kim sort of, being the sort of puppet master here. You'd really think he would sort of fight back here. And, it's really going to be interesting to see Howard's reaction to whatever Clifford Maine, accuses him of here. If he really just, lays everything on the table of what he saw, or if he sort of dances around the issue. So again, I'll be very interested to see what Howard says here, because all of this is absolutely not true, and it's going to be sort of hard to sort of, I guess, have plausible, that's not the right term, but he has an alibi for all of the, everything that happened. I mean, maybe not with the baby powder and the Kettlemans and things of that nature, but he definitely has an alibi when, the alleged event happened with the Wendy and his car. So it'll be just very interesting to see his sort of reaction here. And you do wonder if he puts two and two together in respect to Jimmy being behind these, ruses, if you will, because he definitely caught or could put two and two together in respect to Jimmy being the one who threw the bowling balls at his car in season 5 of Better Call Saul, and being the one who sent the prostitutes to his business lunch. And again, I just kind of just literally thought of this in this exact moment. He already knows that Jimmy is willing to use prostitutes to sort of embarrass Howard Hamlin. So, you do wonder if he sort of puts two and two together there, where it's like these prostitutes again. It's like, is that Jimmy again using these prostitutes to try to embarrass me here? So you do wonder if he's like, you don't think he would just, totally accept these accusations. So really, really sort of wondering if he can put two and two together here in respect to Jimmy being the one behind these sort of assassinations of his character. Single bones, yeah, that's funny. It's kind of like when Hank Schrader had that literal "oh shit" moment to quote Vince Gilligan when he found out that his brother-in-law was Heisenberg. So you do wonder if he will be somewhat indisposed when he makes the grand revelation there, Single Bones. What is up as well, Justin? Charlie Hennings again. I think you mentioned that in the previous stream too, and it's definitely something that I've thought about as well. About how Gus Fring garners all these relationships, especially with those two characters in the previous episode, Mr. and Mrs. Ryman. You do wonder how he obtains these relationships and what's the backstory behind having this married couple, you letting him use their house like that. Where they're almost like not like totally, they're almost invisible to an extent. They're just going about their daily lives, and all of Gus Fring's men are almost just invisible. It's something they don't even consider. It's like electricity. It's there, but you don't really think about it, if that makes sense. So I do wonder if we'll sort of get a backstory there for sure. How they got their hands and started selling Walt and Jesse's meth, if their appearance wouldn't be that. Wait a minute, don't we sort of already know that? Wasn't that story, Charlie, the fact that once basically they killed Combo for dealing on their turf, and it wasn't until after Combo was dead and Gus had partnered with Walter White, where Walt was now Gus Fring's chemist, so therefore all of Walt's meth was Gus's meth, and then he just gave that meth to his dealers. I think we already know that story, actually. So, I mean, if you're talking about how he established the relationship with those dealers, that's definitely something for sure, but I think we already know how they started selling Walt and Jesse's meth, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was already displayed to us in the plot of Breaking Bad, or at least heavily implied. Jojo, yes, I've definitely put myself out there, and I will definitely be eating some serious crow if they do not appear, because I have sort of put together the conspiratorial board that Charlie put together in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I just think for some reason they're going to appear. I sort of talked about at the beginning of the stream. I sort of laid out the sort of, absolute speculation and my total lack of proof, and me just sort of putting together little things that may sort of not be connected. Like, at the end of the day, maybe the title is an absolute red herring, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna be very right or very wrong in that prediction tomorrow for sure. And to tell you the truth, if they're not in the flash forward scene at the very beginning of that episode, it's sort of like it's over there. I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose that bet for sure if they don't appear in the very first scene. But who knows? Maybe Jesse Pinkman will be in the very last scene when he and Emilio are, arrested, or he's with Emilio and Emilio is arrested or something to that effect, and then he hires Saul Goodman in the next episode. Who knows? So we'll see. Animated Alex. I predict Jimmy becomes Saul Goodman. Yep, that's yeah, that one. Yeah, you're really putting yourself out there, man, for sure. That's a risky prediction right there. But yeah, getting back into this the trailer. Yeah, again, another scene of Francesca. I kind of talked about that more in my previous video, a little bit more in depth with her first day at work. This appears to be her knocking on the door for her first day at work. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a different component of the scene. Very cool to see this sign here of Saul Goodman and Associates here, literally written in some black pen on a piece of printer paper. So. Yeah, again, sort of the scene that we saw this whole scene tease, so I'm not really gonna break this one down. And then finally, this scene here of Gus Fring at Los Pollos Hermanos. Again, very interesting sort of storyline here with Gus Fring heading into the remaining 9 episodes of this series, because as I definitely pointed out, I think Peter Gould might have even mentioned this about Gus's character, about how we're really seeing Gus Fring in a completely different light where we hadn't seen him before in quite a long time. Well, we definitely saw him a little bit with a lack of control in season 4 of Breaking Bad, in my opinion. But really, in the plot of Better Call Saul, we haven't seen Gus Fring, this vulnerable. And again, this is, of course, we literally just have one shot here of him looking to, I guess, his right, I guess, our right, his left. That's how you do it. But, I really feel like he's at work, but he definitely, in my read of this scene here, he definitely seems sort of, he's there, but like, what's the expression? Like, the lights are on, but nobody's home. I definitely think he's not really in the moment here. He definitely seems preoccupied with the threat of Lalo Salamanca, just based on his sort of I would say his sort of dialogue and his reaction at the end of the previous episode. So that's what this scene is kind of telling me here, how he's kind of very sort of, not in the moment. He's at work. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's dressed the way he's supposed to dress. He's playing the part, but in his mind, he's definitely somewhere else in his mind. His mind is absolutely preoccupied with Lalo, even though he's at Los Pollos right now. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe in the episode Black and Blue, again, I believe someone actually mentioned Lyle. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Lyle will be in this episode, which definitely makes sense. I think, yeah, his character will appear apparently as a guest star, Harrison Thomas, the actor. So I definitely imagine he'll be in whatever scene is happening here, or in a scene of Los Pollos in some capacity for sure. So. And yeah, that pretty much sums up the scenes here. I believe I talked about the other couple scenes that we saw. The one of Jimmy and Kim talking, and again, there might have been one more in the television. And the Viola and the Kim one, I think, was also in the television copy of this trailer. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Again, there weren't any official photos released for this episode. Again, another sort of red flag here. Like, where are the photos? You would imagine that maybe these photos are of Jimmy and Kim, what am I talking about? Are of Walt and Jesse. I think I read someone say Jimmy and Kim, and that's what I said after reading it. But you just imagine, like, just something's just not right here. It's like, they released the photos for the first 4 episodes, but for episode 5, there are no official photos released. And, this is the exact same title as, a Breaking Bad episode, Black and Blue in season 2, Negro y Azul, in season 2. I talked about this in one of my previous streams about this episode. I went back and watched it, and on the surface, the storyline really doesn't seem to impact, the plot of Better Call Saul that much, especially because Saul Goodman didn't even exist until the next episode of this series. This was one episode prior to Saul Goodman's appearance, and again, I don't really know what the again, maybe they're just calling it black. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm trying to put together the pieces of the puzzle here, but at the end of the day, I just don't know. I just don't know what's going on. And like I said, in respect to the sort of cryptic nature of this title, being very, very, very coincidentally the English translation of a Breaking Bad episode, and we know that Walt and Jesse are going to appear in one episode of this season. So again, I will definitely be eating some crow tomorrow if I'm wrong. So. And actually, just to go back to the previous episode, actually, Hit and Run, I definitely talked about this in my review where I thought that I recognized clicked on an ad there, the man in the car who was following Kim, and it turns out I was correct.
This episode is sponsored by The Real Cost. If you vape, you could be inhaling toxic metals that can damage your lungs.
Damn it. Where is that coming from?
When the loneliness of real life is too much to bear, retreat once more into fantasy anime land, where you not only have actual friends, but they all have glowing swords and
Definitely not an expert there. Wasn't preparing for that. So, but anyway, going back to that episode of Hit and Run. Anyway, we did recognize that guy in the car. His name was character Arthur. He actually did appear in Better Call Saul in a couple of previous episodes, if I'm not mistaken. I definitely believe this actor appeared in a couple different episodes of Better Call Saul, if I'm not mistaken. This Howard Ferguson Jr. He definitely, I think, first appeared in the episode entitled Pinata, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he did. He was one of the men in the trailer watching over Werner's men. So I did recognize him before. He actually was in a lot of different episodes. He was actually I know he was in Pinata was the first episode he was in, but yeah, he was also apparently in, I believe these were all from season 4 of Better Call Saul. I think he was part of the team that was tracking down Werner. So we definitely did see this character before. This was not the first time we saw his character. And actually, I need to apologize to, I think not just me, also a lot of people on Reddit. We all need to apologize to the actor next to him because I thought this was Anthony Kerrigan from Barry, but actually it wasn't. It was a man named Matthew Rozark, and I believe he was in Better Call Saul previously too as well. I believe he was in a couple episodes as well. He was in Witness and Winner, which Witness was from season 3, if I'm not mistaken. Winner was season 4. So yeah, he also appeared, and I don't know. Is it offensive to say they kind of look alike? I mean, I definitely can see the resemblance here between these two actors. So again, I apologize, and also I guess I apologize on behalf of everyone on Reddit who made that joke right after that appearance here in this scene. But yeah, so he was not the same actor. So, but this guy driving, I definitely did recognize him. I swear we saw him before, and we have seen him many times. There's a shot of him in the episode entitled Pinata, and I was gonna try to pull it up, but that vaping ad came up. So. Richie MC, yeah, I would imagine so. The taxi driver will appear in the Gene timeline, absolutely, because then why else did you interject him into the story? I absolutely believe he's going to appear for sure. And Chris Mara was the guy. Yeah, he was definitely the guy who Mike shot on the couch after he killed Chow. He's who Lydia hired to kill the witnesses who Walter White would eventually kill in the episode Gliding Overall. So, yeah. Relax and sleep. I'm definitely going to talk about El Camino at some point. I will definitely talk about that for sure. I was not able to talk about it because that was during the period of time when I wasn't able to make YouTube videos, but I definitely, that's sort of the only sort of iteration of this universe that I haven't been able to talk about really in any actual detail. And, not to get too far ahead of myself here, but wasn't the biggest fan of the movie. Again, it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, there were actually a lot of the components of it I actually really liked. I mean, other than Todd's, physical appearance being completely different than how we saw him in the plot of Breaking Bad, I thought his scenes were actually quite well done. I think it really sort of exemplified his character. It really exemplified his personality and the very sort of, either sociopathic or psychopathic sort of tendencies that he had. And, a lot of great callbacks with him keeping Drew Sharp's tarantula. I mean, that scene of him singing that, was it, I don't even know what that song was. Was it Dr. Hook, if I'm not mistaken? That song when he's doing the whatever that sign, the trucker sign, when he's singing that song when Jesse Pinkman's in the back of his the trunk of his car or whatever. That, I thought that scene was just unbelievable. So there were a lot of aspects of El Camino I did like for sure. But again, the overall premise with Jesse Pinkman, again, I don't hate Jesse Pinkman, but again, I just don't understand why there's just so much more sort of, I don't know. I just really feel like people just feel like Jesse Pinkman deserves that redemption more than other characters. I really feel like Jesse and Gale are actually quite similar, and you can definitely say that Gale deserves that redemption as well. And of course, he didn't get it, but I don't understand the sort of narrative how Jesse deserves it more than other characters. And maybe I'm interpreting that wrong. Maybe people don't feel it that way, but that's just the sort of narrative that I see. I just feel like people really see that Jesse Pinkman sort of deserved redemption more than other characters, and I just don't agree with that. How he was more deserving of anything. So again, I will get to that at some point, probably during the midseason break. I'll sort of break down my sort of more in-depth thoughts about that. And actually, following the spoiler alert, following the death of Nacho, and how I've also had a lot of sort of like thought comparisons to Jesse's character compared to Nacho's. I mean, that's also an unbelievable comparison there that I really could break down as well. Just Nacho's sort of fate as opposed to Jesse's. So definitely we'll break it down there for sure. So at some point in time, in the future. Nick, the Major Tom, my goodness, with Gale, that's funny. Yeah, it was all right then. It was Doctor Hook. Yeah, yeah, that was a great scene. There were a lot of scenes I really enjoyed in that movie for sure. But overall, again, I just wasn't that big of a fan of the premise, so it was hard for me to really sort of get behind the movie, in that sense. He'll be back 100%. I hope so, Thomas Cunningham. I hope we see him. We haven't seen him since season 4. He appeared twice in season 4 of Better Call Saul, but we haven't seen him since he left the super lab after it was still just the hole after Werner's death, where he wanted to do that, preliminary cook, but of course Gus said not until it is finished. So again, we don't know if that means we won't see Gale anymore, but I do hope he will be back in Better Call Saul before the series is over for sure. Juan de Vargas. Yeah, I definitely saw. I think the sixth episode is Axe and Grind, and yeah, I know people have brought up the picture of Howard with the blood on his head. Again, I did a whole video about that. I think it's a red herring, no pun intended. I don't know. I just don't see Howard dying. I mean, that's kind of just my opinion. I could be totally wrong. I mean, people make predictions. People are wrong all the time, but yeah, I believe the sixth one is Axe and Grind, and I think it has been confirmed, if I'm not mistaken, that the seventh episode is planned in execution. It wasn't confirmed and I think a couple days ago when I did that stream, but I do believe it is confirmed now. So, if I'm not mistaken, I believe someone posted on Reddit too about how the title is getting very far ahead of ourselves here. But yeah, they don't have the plot description yet here, but it is confirmed to be. Excuse me, it is confirmed to be planned in execution. The final episode of the first part of this. The final episode of part 1 of season 6. Again, man, wrong show. I told you I haven't seen The Sopranos. I've seen clips of it on YouTube, and it looks like a really good show. And at some point, maybe I'll have to watch it. But I know what you're talking about. I guess it kind of ruins the ending. I know the ending already. So about that scene that cuts to black. But again, yeah, haven't seen it. Should at some point though. Yeah, Justin Cruz, like, why does Jesse get the raw from the sunset but not Nacho? Honestly, I think neither of them should have. I mean, Nacho's storyline is just an unbelievably tragic parable, in my opinion. It reminds me of like a Shakespeare esque tragedy. It's so well done, you know. But Jesse's story, again, I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't my. It just is not what I thought would happen to his character. And I don't know. Like, again, you're not going to please everyone. And I know a lot of people really enjoy the ending, and they still do. But again, I think it would have been a much more tragic parable if his fate was similar to Nacho's. But it is what it is. So Richie MC, yeah, I don't. We haven't seen Mike and Jimmy interact yet, so we don't know whether or not he'll tell him about Nacho's fate. That's a good question. Again, I talked about that dialogue in the desert. It works with him thinking Nacho is dead or alive for sure, but it wouldn't make sense for Mike to tell Kim about Nacho. She doesn't. Well, she knows of Nacho based on season one of Better Call Saul, the whole plot of the Kettlemans and everything. But you don't. Mike's not the type of person to tell unneeded information to someone. So she just told him about Lalo. So I have seen Arrested Development Hyperreal. I don't think I've seen the. I saw the original show. I don't know if I saw like the Netflix one, but I have seen the original the TV show, the one when the series that aired on television. Nacho's dad kills Lalo. That's a heck of a theory right there. Actually, Ion J. I've actually never seen Ozark. I have not watched Ozark. I know a lot of people like it, but I've never seen it. Again, I know there's almost too much good television out there. That's what I tell. I mean, there's all of these great shows out there that people like. I've had people talk about, but there really is almost not enough hours in the day, and there's just so much good. There's so much good. You couldn't finish it all. There's so much good TV out there. So Connor the Esquire, that's a great point. I mean, I talked about it. I mean, if we don't get that flash forward, which really kind of lowers my odds of my, you know, rampant speculation of them appearing in the next episode being correct. I mean, we could. There was no indication that they would appear together. There was no promise that they'd appear together. They could appear in completely separate scenes, completely separate episodes. So who knows? It's definitely possible. I do harken back to Peter Gould saying how their appearance isn't even going to be the biggest surprise of the series. So, I mean, Nacho has just been an unbelievable surprise, and we still have 9 episodes left, so who knows? How old is Jesse Dave B? I believe he is either 20 or 21 currently, if I'm not mistaken, because I think he was 25 years old in season 4 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled in the Crawl Space, I think. So I think he's probably 21 right now or 20 based on what month we're in. So he's probably 20 or 21. So it will be pretty cool to see Jesse Pinkman, or excuse me, Aaron Paul play a 20-year-old version of himself, even though he's 42. So yeah, he's 20 or 21. Wallace Bill, that's for sure. So definitely sort of it'll be interesting to see what he looks like. Yeah, I guess the months Beetle I guess the months sort of factor in as well to his age. And again with Walter White, again with the whole car wash thing, which maybe is a little fan servicey, but I still wouldn't mind seeing it. If you go by the literal definition of his dialogue, I mean he quit in September of 2008, so we're not in September yet. So I guess if you want to go with the literal definition of his dialogue, he hasn't started working at the car wash yet because I think we're in June right now if I'm not mistaken. Because I think we got an actual date in the first episode if I'm not mistaken of or the second episode on the Kettleman's Check of like May 23rd, and then I believe Mike said that they had been watching Gus Fring for 2 weeks and there's been no sign of Lalo. So I guess we're in early June of 2004 right now. And Walter White quit working at the car wash in September of 2008. So not technically 4 years yet. But again, we can sort of take the dialogue with a grain of. When people say 4 years, they could mean 4.5 or 3 and 8 months or something to that effect. Wow, the recovery 716. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Something big is going to happen in plan and execution. I can feel it. Can't wait for tomorrow's episode. Love the content, Anti-Keep. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I talked about that a little bit in my previous stream. The recovery 716. That word execute, like plan and that word execution has such a double meaning there. And execution is not just a normal death. An execution is an execution. That has a whole different connotation in respect to a death surrounding that type of death. So again, if I'm not mistaken, again I don't want to quote things here because I'm not sure if it's official, but I think someone posted on Reddit how the description for this episode was like one line and it only dealt with Jimmy and Kim. There wasn't even a subplot involving any other character, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, really interesting to see there. And again, I talked about this more in my previous stream in respect to Lalo Salamanca, but when is he coming back? I mean, for goodness sakes, we might not see Lalo in the next episode either. There was a 4-episode stretch of no Nacho Varga back in season 1 of Better Call Saul, but, again, I don't know. Maybe we'll see Walt and or Jesse Pinkman and no Lalo. I mean, maybe we'll see Lalo and no Walt and Jesse in the next episode. I mean, he hasn't been teased in any form for the next episode specifically. He was teased in, on this season of Better Call Saul, in that black suit. I talked about that pretty much completely in the previous video. So you can definitely go back and watch that if you want. But yeah, that title for sure. You would imagine the cliffhanger, the recovery is going to be absolutely intense. So, can't wait to see what happens there. May 26, 2004, Travis Gray. Yeah, that makes sense. I think the only thing is, I think it could be about right. You're probably right. We're definitely in late May or early June, in my opinion. So, Elliot T, I don't see it. I know a lot of people have talked about, how the two characters that have ever been main characters of Chuck and Nacho to die both took their own life, and for the premise of continuity, would Howard do the same thing? I mean, of course it's theoretically possible, but just my reading of his character is I don't think he would do it. I mean, he's going through therapy, he's working out his own. I mean, maybe inner demons is the wrong word, but he's trying to find that inner peace, and I really feel like these accusations against him, he would know they're not true. And, even like if someone accused you of these things and there's no actual proof out there besides Clifford Main's own sort of accusations against you, you wouldn't think he would, do, at least at this point in time, I don't see him, doing what Chuck and I guess Chuck did right now. But I guess maybe what they do next will be something where, this will change. But I don't know. I just don't see it at this point in time, at least. So yeah, that is an interesting point, and I talked about this a little bit earlier in my stream. Is like that confrontation that's going to happen in this next episode of Black and Blue with Clifford confronting Howard. I did go back to when Howard put 2 and 2 together, how Saul, aka Jimmy, sent those prostitutes to his business lunch with Clifford Main, and now we have another sort of scheme here where we're using a prostitute against Howard Hamlin. You do wonder if he's going to put 2 and 2 together here. How is this Jimmy again who's doing this ruse against me? This couldn't have been me. I was at my therapy session when this meeting was happening. So I don't think Howard is like that gullible or stupid of a character. I mean, even though he didn't have proof of either of those things, the bowling balls in his car or that, the prostitutes embarrassing him at that lunch with Clifford Main, he knew. It's like going back to ADA Oakley's or Deputy Director Oakley's quotes of there's knowing, there's proving, and there's knowing. And he just knew when it came to what Jimmy did. So, Yeah, I just don't see it with Howard Hamlin right now. Could Tim be a DEA informant? Again, talk about a plot twist. I think I've heard people on Reddit talk about that, but again, I can't even comment on that. That would be that just that's such a plot twist there. Lalo Salamanca is the best. Miss him. Yeah. Again, like I talked about that a little bit in my previous stream. How even and people commented that as well. Even though he's not on screen, his presence is his presence is absolutely felt by characters like Kim and Mike, and especially Gus. I mean, he is definitely in Gus Fring's head right now. So even though he's not on screen, his presence is still really felt, which I think is just unbelievable writing, in my opinion, for sure, by the creators. Richie MC, yeah, it definitely seemed like a transition episode where I talked about it's seemingly impossible to follow an episode like episode 3 with Nacho's death. I mean, it's impossible. I think back to that Key and Peele sketch about, wasn't there like the joke about the guy who had to speak after Martin Luther King at the civil rights rally? I mean, you don't want to go after an episode like that. So it definitely seemed like a transition episode for sure. But I don't know. I'm expecting big things for tomorrow. Really big things. Again, with my, conspiratorial, accusations of no photos being released and the title and all that. And we have to remember too, Negro y Azul was the very first episode we ever saw Tortuga appear. So maybe we'll see Danny Trejo again. He was sort of like a mule or a runner or something to that effect in the cartel, where he definitely was sort of a mule who transported drugs or something to that effect. But yeah, would love to see Tortuga for sure. We've already seen, we saw two Breaking Bad characters in the last episode with Wendy and Spooge, and who knows what's to come in the next episode, which happens to be the exact same as a Breaking Bad episode translated into English. So Gremlinton, I absolutely agree. Great casting, acting, and writing. I absolutely love both of these shows for sure. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Ted McElway. That's an interesting question right there. What does Tuco think when he finds out Nacho is dead while in prison? You'd think you would absolutely find out what Nacho did. And that's a really great point you made right there. It makes me go back to Tuco's death in the episode entitled was it Grilled, if I'm not mistaken? I think it was Grilled in season 2. But remember that speech he gave to Walt and Jesse after Gonzo betrayed him? When he talked about you never trust the ones you love, and just the absolute emotional response he had to that betrayal, you would probably imagine he would feel somewhat similar to a Nacho's betrayal as well. So yeah, that's a really interesting point there. I mean, Tuco is definitely a quite a significant heavy drug user, so that definitely probably affects his emotions and things of that nature. But yeah, you definitely imagine he would have a feel very betrayed by someone like Nacho Varga, because remember he was his sort of right hand man. It was kind of interesting going back to the second episode, I believe, of Miho in the season 1 of Better Call Saul, where we see sort of Tuco listening to Nacho, but going back to Breaking Bad, Tuco didn't listen to anybody. And you do wonder, like, if this betrayal of Nacho of the cartel, is really sort of what causes maybe Tuco to no longer confide in anyone. When this person Nacho, who he really sort of trusted and listened to, totally betrayed his family. That's why he absolutely doesn't trust anyone. And when he thought Gonzo betrayed him by being a rat to the DEA, when actually Gonzo was just killed moving Nose's body, we saw him sort of really have that emotional reaction of like never trusting the ones you love, almost breaking down in tears. Almost quite the scene to see there for sure. So yeah, really interesting question there, Ted, about Tuco's reaction to when Nacho is finds out Nacho is dead while in prison, and he'll likely almost seemingly definitely find a story out at some point in time. So really great question there for sure. Heidi Christensen. Yeah, that's a good point too. You know, like I said, when Peter Gould talked about how you're going to see Breaking Bad in an entirely different light. Again, I don't know exactly how that safe house factors into the sort of whole story of Gus Fring and Hank. That's actually a really good point you raise. I'll have to go back and sort of look at that, in more depth. I'm sort of thinking. I mean, Hank really didn't follow. I mean, he was tailing him a little bit, but I don't know if he tailed him to his house ever. He had that security system outside of his house, and the sort of GPS tracker. It wasn't live time, so he only could see where he went afterwards. So, I'm not exactly. That's a really good point you raised about how that storyline involving Hank tracking him, how that safe house sort of changes our perception of that storyline. But I'll definitely have to go back and rewatch that. That's a great point you raised. Stoned Yoda, yeah, the diamonds. That's a great point too. Again, I have no idea how he got that diamonds. Again, I think I heard someone on, it might have been on Reddit or maybe in some of my YouTube comments. I apologize, it's slipping my mind, but I love the theory around the reason why he transferred all that money to diamonds is so he could like transport the wealth at a much more lighter medium as opposed to those 155 plus pound bags of $7 million. So yeah, I love that theory right there. I don't. What is he gonna do with them? Again, my guess is as good as yours. I mean, we haven't even. We're 4 episodes in. We haven't even seen Gene Takovic. So, what if Tortuga faces off with Lalo at Justin Cruz? I guess it's possible. I don't know if I don't know if I see it, but I guess it is technically possible. Damn, Travis Gray coming with the sort of existential questions in terms of diminishing the series overall, El Camino. I don't know if I'd go that far. Again, it wasn't my favorite. I mean, there's some aspects of well, I don't know. Yeah, to tell you the truth, I wasn't the biggest El Camino fan. I'm not making any bones about it. But yeah, I'll talk about that more in depth in a video to come, likely during the mid-season break. I have a lot of thoughts on Jesse Pinkman for sure, and I definitely have to put them out there at some point in time. So. But does it diminish the overall quality of the series? I don't know if I'd go that far. Relax and sleep. If you're talking about Tuco, yeah, I definitely agree. In Quid Studio, that's funny. Yeah, Raylan Givens is an interesting point. Again, I've thought about that as well, about how much the storyline was altered in the writers' room, excuse me, because they didn't have Robert Forster to portray the character. I definitely do wonder if that was altered in some capacity for sure. But yeah, that is a good point. You do wonder if El Camino wasn't made, if he wouldn't have even appeared. You do wonder. I mean, maybe he still would have appeared. I don't know. Maybe you have some information where that's confirmed. I see what you're saying there. That's a great point, but again, I do wonder about how the storyline had to be altered. Wow, the recovery 716. I'm nervous for Kim, man. They keep showing her behind bars, and Cliff Main was on board with her pro bono work. I want to jump through my TV and be like, no, Kim, it'll all be taken away from her. Yeah, I agree completely, man. If you mean like they're still doing like a lot of figurative sort of shots of her behind bars, like there's a lot of figurative sort of scenes in her of non-prison locations of her where it looks like she's behind bars. I'll have to go back and look at that for sure. I didn't notice that maybe I did notice that. I'll have to go back and look at that for sure. I appreciate that tip for sure. But yeah, I talked about that earlier. I just don't see this. I don't see this happy ending for Kim Wexler. I don't square that. So why would Ray Seahorn say that the ending was devastating, but Kim gets everything she wants and rides off into the sunset and has a nice, long, wonderful life and gets to do exactly what she wanted to? And again, I agree. I don't see it being a happy ending for her. And yeah, it's true. You do want to, I guess there's that urge to feel sorry for her in many respects. But at the end of the day, as Mike Ehrmantraut said in the episode entitled "A Bad Choice Road," we all make our choices, and she's making these choices now to undermine Howard Hamlin in this manner to sort of speed up that settlement. And it's amazing too, that trope of just the lack of patience being such a sort of ends up coming back to bite people in the ass so much. You think about Werner Ziegler, if he just had waited and not done that whole ruse with his wife, he eventually would have gotten to see his wife for the rest of his life, and they would have had tons of money to spend with each other and live, happily ever after, seemingly. And with Kim Wexler, they're going to get that settlement eventually. I mean, I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination. I guess it's possible that these settlements get dragged out for years or maybe a decade. I guess it is possible. So maybe it's not the most apt comparison. You wouldn't imagine that Werner would be building that structure for like 10 years or something like that. But yeah, lack of patience and acting emotionally is definitely the downfall of a lot of characters in this series for sure. So, and I'll definitely go back and check out those shots of Kim seeming like she's behind bars, if that's what you're alluding to. So, I really appreciate the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. Ted McElwain. Okay, cool. Again, I don't, I didn't follow El Camino that closely. So okay, I appreciate that info. Nima Rafai. I apologize so much for that name, but yeah, the security apparatus is definitely still there in the plot of Breaking Bad for sure. It's sort of definitely based on that one scene in season 4 of a Breaking Bad in the episode entitled 38 Snub, where Walter White is walking to Gus Fring's house to presumably kill him. It's now revealed to us, more or less. It's almost outwardly completely implied now that the reason why, I guess Mike, according to the captions, but sounding like Tyrus told Walt to go home is because the security apparatus was still there. So it's definitely still there in Breaking Bad for sure. It's absolutely there. And your premise about how Lalo was still out there and alive and Gus is on the lookout, that's a really interesting theory. You do wonder if he just left it there because, why not? Why, take it away? Especially if Lalo dies, I guess, and it worked, he would, of course, not take it away. And at the same time, if Lalo was still out there, he wouldn't take it away. So, yeah, it's a really interesting point. Again, I do wonder if they'll go a sort of Pulp Fiction route where, maybe Lalo survives to see the end of Better Call Saul, but he dies in a flash forward. Because I guess it is technically possible that he could die sometime in the timeline of Breaking Bad between Saul thinking he's dead and then Gus telling Hector that the Salamanca name dies with you. I guess it is technically possible. At the same time, Nima, it's also possible. Again, I've talked about this in a couple of my live streams about how we could really go into the Princess Bride thing here. That doesn't really apply, but just going to the fact where, Gus could know that Lalo is still alive, but Hector doesn't know that Gus knows that Lalo is still alive, so Gus still says that or something to that effect. And of course, the narrative with the cartel is that Lalo is actually dead. So again, I definitely think we're in for some serious twists and turns here. And I definitely don't think it's going to be as simple as, oh, Gus said the Salamanca name dies with you, so Lalo is just going to die in the Better Call Saul timeline. Again, with how unbelievably creative and all the unexpected twists and turns that came with Nacho Vargas' storyline, I definitely don't think that this storyline is going to be that straightforward in terms of Lalo. So that's a really good point you raised there. Salvatore Martinales, they focus a lot of the heart, Saul's pills, and Gene's heart issue that takes him to the doctor. How devastating ending, Kim and Jimmy reunion, and he dies. Again, I appreciate this too. I'm not really sure what you're getting at there. Saul's heart issues. Has Saul mentioned that he has heart issues? Am I missing something? Are you going back to the pills that they displayed in the cold opening scene of Wine and Roses? Again, we know he had Viagra there, so I know a lot of people have speculated that there's obviously women in that house. He's definitely doing what grown adults do in that house for sure, just based on all the paraphernalia and everything like that. But how devastating ending with Jimmy Kim reunion and he dies. Are you saying like how they're gonna reunite in Omaha and then he's gonna like die of a heart attack? I guess is that I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm not really getting what you're saying. I sort of get what you're saying here. Have they mentioned that Saul has heart issues? Am I missing something? Again, I think one of the pills that he had was of that fake commercial that he of that drug that they showed on his TV, and I forgot what episode it was. It was in season 2 of Better Call Saul, right before he moved back to the nail salon at the corporate housing apartment when he's staying up late at night and he can't sleep because it's sort of the metaphor of the square hole and the round peg square hole where like his second greatest lawyer cup doesn't fit into his BMW cup holder. So again, I think he had some of that drug in his house that was recoded by the feds when all of his possessions when we were getting recoded by the feds. But Again, does Gene have heart issues? Again, I think I totally missed that if that happens. So one of the bottles of pills was for high blood pressure. Okay, it was he definitely had Viagra. He definitely had minoxidil. I think is what I'm not sure. Whatever the drug is for hair loss. He definitely had that in his house as well. So again, Gene's panic attacks. I think Saul had that one panic attack. I believe in season 4 of Better Call Saul when Kim told him that they didn't want to have an office together and how she wanted to go back and work with Schweigert and Coakley. Mike 87 Kush. I know that Saul has sort of had that sort of anxiety attack or something to that effect, but Inkwood Studio, when is the last episode of the first part of the season? I believe May 23rd on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. I can actually just pull it up right here, actually, probably. I believe it's May 23rd. And then I think we get about a month and a half off, and it'll pick up again in July for part 2. So Connor the Esquire, that's an interesting point you raised about Crazy 8. In this, again, I don't know. Jesse Pinkman said he didn't really work so much with Crazy 8 in the plot of Breaking Bad. He worked more with Emilio. And I really feel like, I've talked about this in a couple of my previous streams as well, I really feel like Crazy 8's storyline has kind of reached where it was in the plot of Breaking Bad. So, again, I think we could see him, but I don't know if we sort of need to see him so much. But you would imagine we would need to see Emilio more because of his relationship with Saul Goodman. So, and us, basically the creators having this completely wonderful open-ended opportunity of crafting whatever storyline they really want in respect to his first meeting with Saul Goodman, with his second one being implied when he was arrested in the pilot. And Jesse said that he worked with Emilio quite often, so those two characters appearing maybe in the next episode, it makes some sense to me. I've really kind of put it out there that that's what I think is going to happen. So. Yeah, Christian Thompson. I believe he said it too. When he talked to his employees at Cinnabon in season 5 in the premiere, I think he said he was just dehydrated. So again, I don't know if it's any sort of medical condition. They blamed it on dehydration, and dehydration is really not good for you. And people have definitely dehydrated before. So again, I don't know if he has any medical conditions. So. Yes, Bob Odenkirk does have heart trouble in real life, though. Sonia Palmales, he did have that heart attack, of course, but I don't know. That would be ironic too. I don't know if I remember anything about Saul, Jimmy, or Gene having heart problems. Hector absolutely did, but yeah, I wasn't so sure about Saul. Low Faz, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the support. Ted McElwain. Yeah, seemingly you would imagine that it would be great if it happened, Ted McElwain. It's an absolutely wonderful, pretty open-ended opportunity. And again, at the same time, though, those two characters are pretty prominent, so you would like to see that appearance for sure. But again, I'm just not sure if they're gonna craft that storyline. They definitely can, but again, it's kind of like how it fits into the overall narrative. Into the overall narrative of Better Call Saul. I'd absolutely love to see it, but again, there's only 9 episodes left. There's seemingly a lot of story to tell. So, but wouldn't mind it at all seeing a scene of them together in the same cell block in Los Lunas, as Jesse Pinkman told us all the way back in season 1 of Breaking Bad when he was talking to Walter White right before his first drug deal ever with Tuco Salamanca. MJ all day 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, I like those numbers there. I see what you did there with those numbers, but that theory, I'm not so sure about that. Didn't he wear number 12 once too? Didn't he wear a 12 once, if I'm not mistaken, when his jersey got stolen? So maybe he got add a 12 in there in that number too. I have not. Jack is Kim's dad theory. I have not heard that one. I have not heard that. There's a lot of very interesting theories floating out there. About the sort of Wayfair crash and who might have been on that plane crash. Again, I think that they are very good at walking the tightrope of I don't think I've ever seen a truly sort of I don't want to overextend it here, but again, I don't know. I don't know about that one. I guess it is technically possible, but I don't know if I see that. So, Maybe I have to go back and look at the dialogue some more. Maybe there's something I'm missing there in respect to Kim talking about her father. But at this moment in time, I cannot say that I am too well versed in that theory. So I appreciate it, Paul. Yeah, I've definitely been trying to work on it on certain setups where it's a lot smoother than others. I do appreciate that. I've definitely been working on it, so trying to make it a lot smoother for sure. So I appreciate it, man. Yeah, the Beetle, that boxing scene that's been teased of Howard and Saul again, totally out of left field. If you told me to speculate on theoretical plots that would happen, I could probably list 500 different things before I would imagine a Howard and Saul boxing match in any capacity in this series. So, but you do wonder if Howard sort of confronts Jimmy after he sort of puts two and two together and realizes that he's behind all of these sort of scams that are being pulled to sort of undermine his character for sure. So I do wonder that. Salvatore, I don't think so. I definitely do sweat a lot. If that's I can't see myself on camera right now, but I do sweat a lot. So that may be that may be why if you're seeing something like that. So Lalo's at the restaurant tomorrow. That would be interesting to see. We're going to see that eventually. It may not be in the next episode. They didn't tease it leading up into this episode, but I would imagine that's from the first part of the season for sure, Frank Murr. So, Justin Cruz. Yeah, speaking of Justin Cruz saying, looks good, Anton, keeping hydrated. Speaking of hydrated, I'm going to be right back if you catch my drift. So, for anyone who cares, I'll be back in a little bit. So, yeah, I will be right back, and I apologize for the interruption. But, despite people saying that I am a Robocop, I'm actually a human being, and I have to take care of something right now. So, I will be right back. Excuse me. MJ all day 2345. You're a Yankees fan and a Bulls fan. How do we score that circle? Sorry if I'm a little bit behind there if I miss what's going on. But anyway, yeah. So Salvatore, I did just as much. I can't say that. Never mind. Stone Yoda, I mean, getting back into it, yeah, again, the Kim Wexler thing, that's a great question. I mean, I haven't really thought about what the ultimate fate of the the Kim Wexler will be. You imagine whatever is happening right now, it's not going to be a sort of happy ending for her. But I haven't even really thought about the sort of ultimate fate of Kim Wexler for sure. I mean, I have, but again, I have no idea. What do I want to happen to her? If that's what you're saying, that's a great question, man. I haven't even considered it, to tell you the truth. I don't really know. I don't really know, to tell you the truth. Um, that's a great question. I mean, I've sort of been talked into that sort of, excuse me, silent partner thing, but that doesn't seem that feasible. That's a great question. So again, man, you kind of stumped me there, Stone Yoda. Yeah, I mean, your name is Yoda after all. You got to ask those, profound questions. So, what would you like to see her ending be? To tell you the truth, I haven't ruminated on it enough to make a sort of, you know, a sort of informed, answer to that. To tell you the truth, and I don't know. That's a great question. What would I like her ending to be? I don't know. That is a great question. Kim runs. Yeah, again, there's so many theories here, but Gene will be in prison and Kim will be his lawyer. Ooh, Heidi Christensen. That is actually an interesting theory there. If he took that, oh my goodness gracious, if he took his documents, that is a great question. I mean, you do wonder though you imagine that he would get his sort of identification photo taken when he had that big beard. So I guess they do look similar enough. That is a great point there, right there, about how he would be able to legitimately travel. I haven't even considered that, Heidi Christensen, about him sort of stealing Mateo's identity. And he did go south of the border after he left and killed those two smugglers. So I definitely think it's possible he flew out of a South American country, possibly, or maybe even Mexico, the further south of Mexico, and was able to fly to Germany. That's a great theory right there. I hadn't even considered him using sort of Mateo's paperwork, to travel legitimately, because they do look pretty damn similar, to be completely honest. So. I don't hate that theory at all. The recovery 716. I don't hate. I definitely have heard a lot of people talk about Mike being the one to kill Lalo. It makes a lot of sense on the surface, and I kind of harken back to it. Maybe it makes a little bit too much sense, and things not going down the way we think they are. But it makes a ton of sense to me. I think I definitely sort of speculated about that in a previous video about how Mike, killing Lalo. I kind of put that theory out there potentially being possible, and sort of how that sort of him. But again, if he does kill Lalo, how that storyline will affect Saul Goodman's dialogue in the desert of his believing seemingly that that Lalo is still alive, in conjunction with his very close relationship with Mike Ehrmantraut. That's what I talked about in that video. So if that does happen, you would imagine that would have a very strong impact on that storyline as well, the Recovery 716. So yeah, in hindsight, again, I have to watch it maybe a third or a fourth time, but I definitely think he pocketed his Nacho's father, Manuel's fake ID to Canada, if I'm not mistaken. He definitely did. He didn't leave that ID. He only left Nacho's ID, if I'm not mistaken. The Recovery 716. Really appreciate the super chat, man. And yeah, I definitely agree with that theory for sure, and speculated about it as much in a previous video. That's a good point, Salvatore Marti. Oh God, I'm so sorry with that name. I'm so bad with names. I'll just call you Salvatore. But that's a good point. I remember going back to when Lalo took Nacho to Don Eladio's hacienda in the episode entitled "Something Unforgivable" at the season finale of season 5 of Better Call Saul. I definitely remember going back and watching this, but the people at that meeting, they definitely seemed like completely different people from the people who Gus killed at Don Eladio's hacienda in, I guess, 4.5 years in the future in the plot of Breaking Bad. So that's actually a really interesting point that you bring up about those. I mean, at the time, those were just background characters, for sure. But again, is there enough time in 9 episodes to craft and cultivate the backstory of all the people that he killed along with Don Eladio? I'm not really sure. But yeah, it's definitely something I thought about when Lalo was being his very charming and personable self. Those actors there definitely didn't seem like the same people that he killed in Breaking Bad. But you could kind of chalk that up to sort of the lifespan in this line of work isn't very long. And if you go back to The Irishman, wasn't I mean, if you've seen The Irishman, I believe that wasn't there a scene about like where they kept like sort of listing the bios of all different characters and about how they all died super young and they were all like shot and their time in the sort of mob was really really short. So I imagine like in that line of work, they have pretty short lifespans. So maybe the people there, in Better Call Saul in season 5, where it's 4 years in the future. That's like an eternity in the mob business, seemingly. I mean, I'm no expert, but again, that is a good point there about all the other people that he killed in Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Salud that he talked about with Hector in the episode entitled Crawl Space. Again, Justin Cruz, people asking, how do I want? Again, that's like, I don't know. I have thought more about just how these characters sort of fit into the storyline based on the backstory of Breaking Bad and cultivating the best story. To tell you the truth, it's actually kind of funny. Like people saying, like, what do you want to see? I haven't really thought of it in that sort of vantage point about like what I want to see. I definitely didn't. I mean, I've made it pretty clear I didn't want Jesse Pinkman's ending to be that way. That's sort of something that I had ruminated about and hoped for. So I don't know. Maybe because of that, I don't want to get my hopes up too much, and that's why I'm not really focusing on what I want for the story. I'm just kind of just sitting back and enjoying it, and sort of using the backstory of Breaking Bad as sort of a guide to sort of see where the story is going to go, and sort of look at various components of the storyline that can happen and can't happen based on continuity and canon and things of that nature. So. Nick Bradley, I think so. I think we will see Emilio for sure. I talked about in a previous stream how I think someone on Reddit posted that the actor John Koyama, who portrays his character, retweeted a Better Call Saul post, so people kind of use that as a sort of, proof in air quotes that he was going to appear. And like I talked about, with just a completely open-ended storyline surrounding Saul Goodman's first time meeting Emilio, getting him off, twice after having him dead to rights, it just seems like an opportunity too big to pass up, for sure. So I definitely do think we'll see Emilio. Do you think the cartel kills Lyle Mendoza's Coyote? I don't know. Lyle seems a little bit too innocent for me on this one. He wasn't in Breaking Bad, so he definitely seems like a guy who maybe doesn't work at Los Pollos Hermanos in the future. But I don't know. He definitely seems sort of separate from this. I think Lalo gets out okay. That would be quite. I mean, I think Lyle, excuse me, is an awesome character. So I'd hate to see that, and definitely don't think the cartel will kill him. I guess it is technically possible, but damn, that would be tough. That would be a tough scene to see for sure. Right up there with Nacho going, to tell you the truth. I mean, Lyle's such a sort of innocent, sort of down to earth guy. You'd hate to see him go like that. So. Damn, relax and sleep. I don't know, man. Wouldn't that be a huge sort of, hinder on HHM's reputation for, him to be that petty? I guess it is technically possible, but I don't know. I feel like that would just hinder sort of HHM's reputation too much. And I don't think he's mad at Clifford Maine at this point, at least. I mean, like Jimmy's the one manipulating him, and he would maybe understand where Clifford is coming from, that Jimmy's being the manipulator. So again, I don't know if I see that one. I guess it is technically possible, but I'm not sure. Pablo Wayne in respect to Jack. Yeah, I don't know about Jack, but I definitely hope we see Jesse Plemons in respect to Vamanos Pest, with that being a pretty crucial. Well, I wouldn't say that crucial, but it's definitely something that Saul Goodman mentioned in the plot of Breaking Bad, how he's pulling their chestnuts out of the fire, legally speaking, for 5 years. And we've already seen Ira in season 4 of Better Call Saul. And you would think that plot would definitely come full circle for sure. So, excuse me, I don't know about Jack, but I definitely think we'll see Jesse Plemons, a.k.a. Todd Alquist, excuse me, and Vamanos Pest, based on Saul Goodman's backstory dialogue from the plot of Breaking Bad. Lyle is as good as dead, Thomas Cunningham. I hope not. Stephen Brunel, again, I think maybe you're editorializing a little bit here, but if you're definitely going back to that scene that we've seen of Gus Fring with that absolute look of just, intensity and horror on his face outside of Los Pollos Hermanos, something's definitely going down outside of Los Pollos, absolutely. That likely has to do with Lalo. Whether or not Lyle will get caught up in the crossfire, your guess is as good as mine. But I definitely think if you're talking about that scene right there, definitely something's going to happen there for sure. So relax and sleep. I see what you're saying there. We'll see. I feel like right now, I feel like we'll see. I mean, I think we need to see that confrontation first before we make any grand, proclamations about that storyline. So, I think we'll definitely be able to ruminate on that more after we see what happens tomorrow. So, and damn, I am, see you around, Salvatore. I'm probably going to be, wrapping it up pretty soon here too. It's getting kind of late and, I got some things to do tomorrow as well, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I really put myself out there in respect to this speculation that Walter White and or Jesse Pinkman is appearing tomorrow. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens, and I'm really setting myself up to be really right or really wrong. So Thomas Cunningham, my God, that's too funny. I do wonder what he'll look like if he does appear Jesse Plemons. I think I saw a photo of him recently, and I think he looks pretty much the same, which isn't as bad to tell you the truth, because even if he does look quite different from now, we can just sort of, use artistic license to say that, Todd Alquist lost a lot of weight over the course of, until, the plot of Breaking Bad. MJ all day 225. Again, Alvarez, again, he just seems to be sort of just a way to drive the plot forward at the end of the day. Again, with there just being so much that's sort of implied here, I don't know if we'll be able to be explained like every single little thing. I mean, even the sort of gang that, Nacho pinned the hit on, was that also Alvarez, if I'm not mistaken, or it might have been a different gang? Don't quote me on that. I'll have to go back and rewatch that storyline from season 4 of a Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Talk, the shootout that ensues where Gus Fring pins that sort of hits on Nacho and Arturo on that gang, and then they take out the sort of whole gang. I don't think it's the same gang, but I think that's just more or less a vessel to drive the plot forward, and just with so much story to tell and so little time, where we didn't even get to see the backstory behind Spooge so far. I mean, maybe we will. Maybe he'll come into the fold again in a future episode, but, I do not know about Alvarez. So, wow, Kate Valentine, my goodness. I really appreciate it. I think you are all right. I really appreciate it. Oh my goodness. So I really appreciate the support. I can't believe it. Thank you so much. I do like that emoji too. That is one of my favorite emojis of all time. If you can catch my drift there. So again, Travis Gray, I'm not sure about, again, Albert. It seems more just like a vessel to drive the plot forward. Again, I'll have to go back and rewatch that scene from the episode entitled Talk to see which gang that Gus pinned the sort of that hit on. But again, Alvarez, I guess he just is some sort of a high-ranking member of the Peruvian cartel, if my off the top of my memory serves me correctly. So I'll definitely have to go back and look at that one for sure. But again, there's so much story to tell in so little time. Again, I could go on and on and on. I mean, we haven't seen Gene yet. What's the deal with the cab driver? What's the deal with the guy he brought with him? What's the deal with the diamonds? I mean, for goodness sakes, Jimmy McGill is nothing compared to what Saul Goodman is in the plot of Breaking Bad. But going back to that sneak peek scene, actually, if you go back to the sort of suit that Saul Goodman was wearing, I definitely did appreciate that for sure. This suit right here, actually, this is actually perfect. But I remember going back and watching this sneak peek scene where I definitely noticed that this style of suit definitely resembles much more of what Saul Goodman wore compared to what Jimmy McGill wore in the plot of Better Call Saul. I mean, while Saul Goodman wore a lot of very kind of mismatched colors and things of that nature, he didn't wear a lot of patterns and stuff to that effect. Like even the suit, that purple suit he was wearing, the sort of checkerboard suit back in the first episode of season 6. It definitely seemed quite different compared to what he wore in the plot of Breaking Bad. And this suit right here, this sort of very like teal combination with this black suit and this sort of very paisley tie, this is Saul Goodman. This is exactly what I think when I think of Saul Goodman from the plot of Breaking Bad. He has the Bluetooth. This is the style of suit that he wore. So we're really progressing here. We're finally seeing the office open up, even if it's, a gutted structure and not the, finished product that we saw in the plot of Breaking Bad. So we're really moving there. And the point I'm getting at is in respect to like all the things we have to see is that I really feel this transformation still is a long way away in respect to his personality. And, I've talked about this, I feel like again and again and again in respect to, the fact that we're going to see Breaking Bad in an entirely different light. But I think at the end of the day that Jimmy McGill is going to be, Saul Goodman is going to be more or less a persona of Jimmy McGill, and that Jimmy McGill is always going to be there. And, with this sort of nuanced backstory, I'm speculating here. I could be completely wrong just based on, maybe even what's displayed to us in the next episode. But yeah, I'm just, so much story still left to tell in 9 episodes where, you don't even know how it's even possible. So, again, people are talking about like things like, these smaller plot details like Alvarez and stuff like that, which is absolutely intriguing. I'd love to see it. But again, it's kind of like, the creators have to be very sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just very sort of calculated with their limited amount of on-screen time. So, Stone Yoda, I could not do that off the top of my head. I'd have to definitely sort of think back to that. So, that's something I'd have to ruminate on before I, discuss in more detail. So, am I listening to the Insider Podcast? To tell you the truth, I only have listened to 1 episode so far. The only one I listened to was the 3rd episode so far. I have not gotten a chance to listen to episodes 1, 2, or 4. But I did listen to number 3 after Nacho's episode at the Rock and Hard Place. I did listen to that one. That's interesting, Heidi. I mean, I haven't heard any, I do like that title for sure. I don't know if we have any confirmed titles for part 2. I know the next 3 for the first part of the remainder of part 1 of season 6 are Black and Blue, Axe and Grind, and Plan and Execution. That is a great title there. I don't know if that's confirmed or not. So yeah, Thomas Cunningham, I know it's so bittersweet. I mean, it is great that, it's great that the season is going on, but I still haven't wrapped my mind around the fact that this series is ending, in a couple months. In August, it's going to be over. So, again, it is bittersweet for sure. Yeah, where's the caddy? Another great point. We're already in episode 5, and Saul Goodman is still driving a brown Ford Taurus. So many things we didn't expect, I feel, coming into the season. We knew the plot would be pretty rapidly paced, and you think, oh, of course, he lost the Suzuki Esteem in the shootout that occurred in the episode entitled Bagman. Of course, the next car he's going to get that, white caddy. But no, another unbelievable sort of plot twist who would have suspected that, Saul Goodman would be driving a brown Ford Taurus in the first quarter of this season, and we haven't even seen the caddy outside of it getting repossessed in the cold opening scene of sort of flash forward scene to the Breaking Bad timeline. So, again, so many twists and turns here, and just kind of going back to the sort of, overall premise of, this week of me really putting myself out there, and how in the 5th episode we're going to see Walt and Jesse again. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but we will see him. We will see him for sure eventually. So, I will be live again tomorrow, Richie MC, after the stream, after the episode airs for sure, where I will definitely be locked and loaded to maybe totally eat crow. So yeah, I will be live after tomorrow. That is the plan. Bobby Heron, Wolves. I love that episode title as well. I love that 1 and 2 with in addition to Truth and Consequences. There are a lot of good titles here for sure. Again, I have heard a lot of people say they want an episode called like Breaking and Bad or something to that effect. That seems a little bit too obvious, and that's why I sort of think this sort of Black and Blue title is sort of not actually a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, anagram or something to that effect, but the fact that they both, again, I'm going so full conspiracy here, but Black and Blue both start with B's, and Breaking and Bad both start with B's, and it was the Breaking Bad episode, Negro y Azul. So, again, that's why I'm thinking that, this is going to be where we see Walter White and or Jesse Pinkman very unceremoniously in the 5th episode of 13. Such a random episode, but we'll see. So, yeah, Thomas, for sure. It is gonna be weird to think when this is over. So, to tell you the truth, though, when Breaking Bad ended in 2013, I thought to myself, "Damn, man, it sucks. It's over. I love this show, and it's over. There's no more iterations of it." But this backstory and this prequel to Breaking Bad that we've got to see of Better Call Saul has absolutely exceeded my expectations and some. So. And to tell you the truth, I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending of Breaking Bad, but I've definitely come to terms with it much more, and I definitely understand it much more in hindsight. And also due to the fact that we got to see this, without that ending, we would have never got to see, this entire, iteration of the prequel to Breaking Bad, which has been absolutely unbelievable. So, it's been a good run. It's been what, almost like 9 years now since that ended, if my math serves me correctly. So when Breaking Bad ended, I definitely didn't think I'd still be this immersed in this universe and able to see so many new sort of iterations in this universe and all the different backstory of all these amazing characters. Pimento and Sandwich. I like that too, Thomas Cunningham. So, did you start watching Breaking Bad since 2008? That's a great question. I was meaning, I've never talked about it before. So, I mean, I'm not gonna lie here. I'm not an OG. I did not start watching in season one. Then again, if you are an OG and you started watching on TV in season one, more power to you. That's badass right there. But I started watching. I don't remember exactly what year. It was either the end of 2011 or early 2012. It was when seasons. Evan Berg, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I'll go Hawks, man. I'm not a Seahawks fan, but that's a badass logo right there. Is that the throwback logo or is that the most recent logo? I can't remember. They changed it a little bit, but Travis Gray started watching in 2011. But yeah, I started watching Breaking Bad after the I remember I was on Netflix and it was right after season 4 ended, so whatever that year it was, because only the first 3 seasons were on Netflix, and I binged those immediately. It was just unbelievable. And I think back then I didn't even have a credit card, so I literally had to go out to like Walmart and I had to buy like an iTunes gift card. And as soon as season 3, couldn't even wait. I was like, I want to, I'm just gonna go out and get it right now. I literally went to Walmart, got an iTunes gift card, and bought season 4 on iTunes and binged it right away. So, yeah, it was right after season 4 ended I watched. And the very first episode I saw on TV was actually not until season 5, episode 1 of Live Free or Die. That was the first episode I ever saw on TV. So, yeah, that's when I started watching. It was either the end of 2011 or early 2012. So, I'm not an OG. I'm not going to claim to be. And, it is. I have met some people who started watching all the way back in season 1. And I'm like, damn, you were definitely, way ahead of the curve for sure. You're definitely ahead of your time for unbelievable television. So, no, I am. Yeah, I definitely did not start watching it initially. So, Sam Loomis, that's awesome. If you started watching back in 2008, yeah, see, yeah, that's unbelievable, man. I was actually thinking back to that as well about how I had to binge watch the first 4 seasons, and the binge watching. There's a lot of amazing things about binge watching for sure, just because you just get the back to back to back to back to back. Non nobis solum, thank you, solum, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. I really appreciate the super chats. My goodness, thank you. I really appreciate it. But yeah, Sam Loomis, going back to what you were saying, like I didn't get to watch I binged the first 4 seasons, but the thing that it's amazing, binging is awesome because you just get the episodes back to back to back to back to back, and it's unbelievable. But I guess it's not technically the way the episodes were meant to be watched. I guess technically, I guess there may be some, but the point I'm getting at here is you lose the sort of suspense of the cliffhangers. That's the thing that I didn't get to appreciate, and the thing I loved about seeing season 5 live is that you got to really just revel in those cliffhangers, where you had to wait an entire week and just ruminate on that episode before you got to see the next episode. And I thought back to just the episode entitled Crawl Space, where that might have been one of the most unbelievable cliffhangers I ever saw, where Walt is in that crawl space and he realizes that Skyler gave the money to Ted Beneke and he doesn't have enough money to go to Ed to disappear, and he thinks that Gus is going to kill him and his entire family. And when we see the camera pan up and then it cuts to black after like the pitch sort of modulates like that, I was like, that's an unbelievable cliffhanger. And I can only imagine what that was like to have to sit on that for an entire week before you got to see the next episode. But of course, I watched the very next episode right after that. So that's the one thing that I sort of don't like about binge watching is you don't get to revel in those cliffhangers. So. Michael Curtis. That's an interesting point. Like again, I can't speak to like how people watching a show will affect how their opinion on the main character, but yeah, for me, the thing that just I find unbelievable about this series is that just the way you just the perception of your view of the character just changing so much. I mean, just the unbelievable amount of empathy and sympathy you have for someone like Walter White when you're first watching the show. You just understand, why he's doing what he's doing so much, and you sympathize with him so much. But, as the show progresses, when he killed Mike in season 5 of Breaking Bad, I was like, damn, man, this guy sucks. And like the contrast of that is just unbelievable, where, you go from sympathizing with him so much to realizing this isn't a very good person. Like, this is not the most redeemable person here to be sort of rooting for. So just unbelievable writing here for sure. Just, yeah, you can probably tell I absolutely love these shows. And I think it's pretty obvious too. I mean, there are definitely people who they talk about things just because they're popular, and I know these shows are popular, but I genuinely really love these shows, and I love talking about them. I genuinely like them, and that's why like I really don't feel like talking about another show in this sort of format because I just don't have the passion for it, and I feel like it would really be quite obvious in terms of my the content I make, and I really love this show. I love rewatching it. I love the characters. I love the premise. So yeah, it is as I believe Thomas Cunningham said earlier. With there only being 10 episodes left, it's pretty damn bittersweet. But just gotta live in the moment here, and I'm gonna enjoy these next few months, and really just can't wait to see what unfolds, and really looking forward to seeing how this completely changes my perception of Breaking Bad, as Peter Gould alluded to in these interviews leading up to this season. So yeah, for sure, Frank. That was another one too. The cliffhanger on Tahajali, that was a hell of a cliffhanger there too, where you're just like, man, it's over. The music stopped for Walter White. The chickens came home to roost for sure. That cliffhanger of him when he was looking in that mirror, when he's like, in the car fighting through that hail and barrage of gunfire. That was that the Tahajali cliffhanger was something. Yeah. I agree for sure. Then Frank Mir, that was a great one. Sam Loomis, that's a good point. I talked about that in a previous video about how seemingly despite what happens with Mike, his story is just an unbelievably tragic ending, and maybe that's why they get. In hindsight, I think people who say I'm almost sort of even changing my opinion, in this very moment, but I just feel like there are so many tragic parables to Breaking Bad. Mike, Nacho, and maybe they just felt like Jesse was the one who got to have redemption. So because it would have been pretty damn dark if everyone sort of died. Isn't that how Shakespeare tragedies work though? I didn't really pay attention in high school English class, but I think I remember one of my English teachers saying in a Shakespeare tragedy, everyone dies. But I guess Jesse was the one who got to have that redemption, and maybe that's sort of the isn't that sort of like the trope of like Saving Private Ryan? How like everyone died trying to save Matt Damon's character, and Matt Damon was the one who got to live in the end of it. That line that Tom Hanks gives to Matt. I should be knowing these characters, but I don't. But that line that Tom Hanks gives to Matt Damon of "earn this," that's a powerful scene right there. So, it's kind of like Jesse was the one who got to make it in the end. So, yeah. Yeah, in hindsight, Mike's ending is really dark, Michael Curtis. You do wonder, and I do hope they sort of walk that tightrope a little bit. I have thought about that a little bit. I do hope they don't sort of interject a sort of, maybe. I mean, again, I won't put anything past these writers, but if they put something into the storyline of like what Kaylee should do if like Mike ever abandons her in the park or something to that effect, to sort of tie a bow on that sort of very dark nature of that storyline, I don't think they'll do that, but. It is kind of interesting to see what happens with Mike because irrespective of what happens with him in Better Call Saul, we know that, man, is that ending tragic of what happens to him in Breaking Bad. I mean, leaving his granddaughter in the park, leaving his family with nothing, disappearing without a trace. His last memory his granddaughter ever has of him is, her grandfather abandoning her in the park when she's 10 years old. That's the very last memory she'll ever have of her grandfather. So, pretty damn dark for sure. So, maybe they had to give Jesse the slightly less dark and redeeming storyline. So sorry, I'm so bad about this name. Vinesh, if that's your name. Like, yeah, again, I've talked about that in my previous stream about Lalo and what he's doing. Again, you think Lalo was just so viscerally angry at the end of season 5 of Better Call Saul with what happened to him and his, his staff and his house at his hacienda. Even when he said to like Hector, like my house, Hector, mi casa, something to that effect. But it is quite the sort of cognitive dissonance where we see him at that restaurant, being very jovial and having a great time, and almost seemingly living his life in spite of that. So I do wonder, again, I have no idea what Lalo was planning right now. I tried to speculate that in my previous video to absolutely no avail, But that is a great question there. I don't know what his revenge entails currently. Everything I thought that was going to happen was completely wrong. So we'll see. All right, then that's funny, man. And that's actually another interesting point too. You raised Huel, and that's actually something else I've thought about for sure with Huel Babineau. Where what's interesting about Huel's storyline is he doesn't appear in season. He doesn't appear. He does not appear in Breaking Bad until season 4 in the episode entitled. Oh man, I should know. Was it 38? No, it wasn't. I think it was Box Cutter. He appeared in in the season premiere of season 4 of Breaking Bad, and it was implied that Saul hired him after Mike threatened him to break his legs. But we now know that Saul's backstory with Huel goes way back in the timeline of Better Call Saul. So I do wonder how they square that circle with at least it's seeming that Huel Babineau was not hired until season 4 of Breaking Bad, where when Walt first met Saul Goodman in season 2 of Breaking Bad, as well as season 3 of Breaking Bad, Huel Babineau wasn't there. So I do wonder how they kind of square that circle. Maybe Huel was there all the time, we just didn't see him. It definitely is possible. So definitely something I've thought about with Huel Babineau for sure. That's funny though, the sitting in the safe house forever. In the end, I think he was all right. I think he was all right. So I don't know if they had any actual evidence on him. So I think he eventually probably figured out what happened, and he probably got to live his life, I would say, at all right then. My goodness, the recovery 716. In quite a ride, Jimmy tells Francesca to call a lawyer and tell them Jimmy sent you. Could it be the lawyer he always talks to in the courthouse? Maybe Jimmy rats on Lalo and gets back at that lawyer's group. Which lawyer are you talking about? Are you talking about ADA Deputy Director Oakley? Is that who you're referring to? The recovery 716 is that who you're referring to? I mean, what other lawyer are you talking about that he always talks to in the courthouse with? I mean, I've heard a lot of people speculate that it would have to be Kim Wexler, because that would be the most sort of symbolic sort of character for sure. But again, I don't know what lawyer you're referring to. You forgot his. Are you talking about Deputy Director Oakley? I think he's a district attorney. So can you hire? I don't know. I've never had legal problems, but can you hire a district attorney to defend you, or don't they prosecute the people? I'm not sure about that. So yeah, and maybe Jimmy rats on Lalo. That's another. I don't know if Jimmy's going to rat on Lalo. I definitely don't think he's going to. Just based on that conversation that we saw in in episode 3 of Better Call Saul, in season 6, where Kim says, "Do you want to be a friend of the cartel or be a rat?" And even though it's not really implied to us that Jimmy, aka Saul, is a friend of the cartel in the plot of Breaking Bad, he's definitely more someone who aligns himself more with criminals than someone who would rat on Lalo. So I definitely don't think he's going to rat on Lalo. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does, and that's what gets him in trouble. But just on the surface, after that conversation that he had with Kim, I don't think he's going to rat on Lalo at the Recovery 716. And if you're talking about Deputy Director Oakley, I don't know if you can hire a district attorney to defend you. Can you do that? Can you hire a district attorney to be your lawyer? I don't know about that. I've never had to. I've never been in that circumstance. So maybe it's true. Maybe he gets that happy ending. He always wanted to get that sweet Davison Maine gig, right? He was so he coveted what Saul had so much, or Jimmy had so much in season 2 of Better Call Saul. So maybe he leaves the district attorney's office. I guess that is possible for sure. It could be Oakley. I think I even speculated on a previous video. I think it was about with the Walter White and Saul Goodman timeline, where there's a very sort of I think it's in the episode entitled Problem Dog, and I've talked about this, how we don't really have time to see every single little character that Saul Goodman ever interacted with in the plot of Breaking Bad. There's a lot of them. I've talked about them in a couple videos, but there's one scene where it's a sort of piece of completely throwaway dialogue where after someone gets Walter White's charges down to misdemeanor trash burning, he says to him, I can get you in, but I can tell you, like, a certain hole on the golf course is murder. Like, tea time at, I think, 7 a.m., like, prepare to have your ass handed to you. Of course, with hindsight, maybe he's referring to that country club that he originally didn't get to be a member of. Maybe Saul eventually becomes a member of it, and maybe he's talking with Deputy Director Oakley there. Again, there was that sort of piece of dialogue, I think in either episode 1 or 2, where Saul, it might have been in Wine and Roses, where Saul tells Kim, "You got to teach me to play golf sometime." because we know that Saul Goodman plays golf based on his backstory of Breaking Bad, but we've never seen Saul play golf yet. So at some point, you would imagine he has to. So I did talk about that. Maybe he's talking about Oakley, but I'm not sure. I feel like he'd have to leave the district attorney's office at the Recovery 716 for that to be the case. And yeah, I don't know if Saul rats on Lalo. I feel like he'd be too afraid to rat on Lalo, to tell you the truth. So, Heidi Christensen, Omar, yeah. Again, who knows? I mean, Kim makes the most sense. They definitely worded it very open-endedly. I think Saul said, "Tell them that Jimmy sent you." He didn't even say him or her. So I don't think that's proper grammar, but people speak that way all the time, and I think the writers were very particular with that dialogue for sure. I think it said tell him or tell him. Maybe it was him. I'm not sure, but it definitely sounded like tell them or tell M that Jimmy sent you. So again, definitely left it open-ended for sure. But again, I harken back to just so much story to tell, so little time. That phone call with Francesca on Saul Goodman's birthday. The lawyer who she's supposed to talk to. The cab driver who he brought with him, the diamonds. So much story here. So yeah, Thomas Cunningham, I agree. Saul, so I talked about that too. Like how even though he's wearing the right suit and he's sort of looking more like Saul Goodman with the Bluetooth and with the suit, personality wise, it definitely seems like it's going to be a persona a little bit. But again, I talked about that in a previous video too. How I feel like I do wonder about those webisodes because they made those Breaking Bad webisodes, which were kind of teasers leading up to seasons, I believe, 2, 3, and 4. And they definitely were done. They were very lighthearted and they were very comical. I think, wasn't there one where like Hank cheated on Marie before his wedding night with like with a man who he thought was a woman or something to that effect? They were done very comically and they weren't meant to be, taken very seriously. But now with this sort of very sort of in-depth sort of stories that we've seen with Better Call Saul, you do wonder if they're going to sort of take those webisodes as canon. And the point I'm getting at here, there was an episode called Live Saul Cam where we see Saul in his office when no one else is around, and he definitely is acting in the exact manner of Saul Goodman, of course, because his whole backstory hadn't been crafted yet. So you do wonder if they want to show that story where the Saul Goodman is just a persona where, maybe when no one's around his office, we see Saul alone. He sort of has that sort of decompressing moment where he just sort of turns it off and reverts back to Jimmy McGill. Because if I'm not mistaken, we don't really see that decompression. I think we've definitely seen him alone in his office before, but he's always been working, I feel. Or always like, it's always been in some capacity of facilitating Walter White or, Jesse Pinkman or something to that effect, or someone in Walter White's circle. So again, I don't know how him acting in the exact manner he did in that webisode Live Saul Cam factors into the sort of final story they want to craft for him, where, he's having sex with prostitutes in his office and he's literally acting exactly the same, when no one's around to watch. I talked about maybe he's a method actor, I don't know, but, definitely a great point you raised about, I believe, Thomas Cunningham, about how he's so different from Breaking Bad. So, yeah. I hope Kubi returns. I talked about that in a previous video. I think he has to return for sure. So, I mean, he was a member of the A-Team, and like I said, he was supposed to appear in Season 5. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but yeah, I think Kubi will appear, for sure. If I'm not mistaken, actually, Justin, I think I talked about this in a previous video, but in the episode, in Season 6, Episode 6, it does say Kim and Jimmy enlist a knowledgeable contact. Fingers crossed, maybe this is Kubi. Maybe we'll see him in Axe and Grind. I mean, who is this knowledgeable contact? It is possible. So I think we'll see him for sure, just based on what happened last season 5, during Season 5 with that sort of whole thing with Bill Burr. But who knows? Maybe we'll get him in the next episode. Yeah, Bobby Heron, can't wait to see that iteration again. Can't wait to see what happens there. I didn't see that exit door. I'll have to take another look at that, at what you're saying there. I'll have to take another look at that sneak peek scene, but we do not for all of Season 6, David, but we do have them for all of part 1. They were Wine and Roses for Episode 1, Carrot and Stick for Episode 2, Rock and Hard Place for Episode 3, Hit and Run for Episode 4, Black and Blue for Episode 5, Axe and Grind for Episode 6, and Plan and Execution for Episode 7. So we have those, but we don't have Part 2 yet. So yeah, I talked a little bit about those earlier in the stream, David. So yeah, you do wonder, John Ulitt. Again, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here, but I think didn't even Bob Odenkirk talk about, maybe I'm totally wrong here, but I guess you never know. Maybe there's a potential for a movie in some capacity in the Better Call Saul universe, like we had El Camino. It's possible, maybe these next 9 episodes aren't the final iteration of this universe. Who knows? But like I said, even there's nothing we can do about it. The series is ending in 9 episodes. It's very bittersweet, but just trying to live in the moment right now and just really enjoy this story that's going to be told for us in the weeks and months to come. So again, Nick, I talked a little bit about the blood on that photo that everyone's talking about. I made a whole video about it. I think it may be a red herring, no pun intended, but we'll see. So yeah, it's true, Bartman. We also have Slip and Jimmy. Again, that's a discussion for another time. So yeah, I guess we didn't. I guess we did. Again, I don't want to get too much. I'm sorry. I don't know how to say this name. It looks like a different language with the peace sign. I apologize. But again, El Camino is a story. Again, I will break that down in a video to come. Like I said, for sure. So but yeah, anyway, I think I'm gonna have to call it there. I think I've been out this for a couple hours now, but yeah, I really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. Got a busy day tomorrow, so got a lot of things to do, but I will definitely be live again tomorrow after the episode airs. Really looking forward to it. Oh yeah, the Life 21. There was that thing that's true in the television copy. There was that. I totally missed that. Again, could totally speculate. Maybe it has something to do with the Gus Fring's manufacturing, or maybe it's has something to do with that completely different. But yeah, I forgot about that as well. Good pool there. We'll see that tomorrow in the episode for sure. But yeah, I missed talking about that. I appreciate you bringing that up. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna have to call it here, guys. It's getting kind of late. I really appreciate it for sure. Really appreciate all the support tonight. I really appreciate all the super chats. I was not expecting that at all. I am at a loss of words with the amount of support that this channel has gotten since I started. I really appreciate it. I never envisioned this channel becoming what it became, and I'm humbled that people enjoy my content and people like what I have to say about this series. I really appreciate it. So again, I'm really looking forward to these next few weeks and months to talk about this show and with everyone here, and putting my thoughts out there and hearing everyone else's thoughts. So I really appreciate it. So again, I'm gonna have to call it here. Again, I'll be live tomorrow for sure. I don't want to ramble on too much here, but again, really appreciate all the support tonight. Really appreciate all the super chats. I mean, I can't even go back and list them all. There were so many. I really appreciate them. I'll definitely have to shout them out again at some other time. But again, everyone have a great rest of your night. If you're out there in the East Coast or West Coast or in the U.S. or wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you guys all again tomorrow. I really appreciate it. Have a really great night, everyone. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in.